Hi, I'm Chris James, and today we're going to be doing a response video to Rawvana telling everyone that she's no longer vegan or purely plant-based.
We're missing a piece of the puzzle. You start getting healthy and you just become a better person. We need to start focusing more on the individual.
So I don't typically do response videos. I'm not really the type who, feels like the need to judge other people or, I really stay in my own lane as much as possible. But I was asked to do this video by one of my Patreons, and I ask them all the time, if there's anything you want me to do, let me know. So this is something special because it was requested by a Patreon. So here we go. Rawvana is a raw foodist, or was a raw foodist, has a pretty huge channel, has a great, decent following as it pertains to people in that raw food movement. I don't know if she's a self-proclaimed vegan. The reason why I say that is because I don't eat meat, but I'm not a vegan. So you'll never hear me call myself a vegan. I don't put myself in those categories. I think it really just sets you up for failure. Plus, cheese slips into my diet every once in a while, or eggs baked into bread or something like that may slip into my diet every once in a while. So I don't think I would even be classified as a vegan just because of those things. But with that being said, I didn't do a whole bunch of digging. I literally just went to her video and listened to her talk for like a 30-minute video where she talked about her journey, where she started and where she is now. And then, of course, why. So any of the hearsay or any of the, I don't know how it got out to begin with. I don't know any of that. She made it seem like the word had got out before she made that video. So I'm not really getting into any of that stuff. We're just going to talk about, what she went through, where I would have done things differently with the knowledge I have currently, and just kind of my overall opinion about the situation. And keep in mind, it is just my opinion. I don't know her personally. I don't know her situation. I don't know whether she's lying about stuff or hiding stuff. I'm just going purely off of the video and taking everything face value. So she starts off by talking about how she discovered the raw foods and the vegan lifestyle and, all of that stuff when she was, I guess she was sick. She wasn't feeling well herself. Okay. I think that's important to really start with because, with all of these ex-vegans and all of these people who are kind of like, oh, I'm going back to the carnivore diet or eating meat and fish or whatever. They always started off eating the standard American diet to begin with. So I think we have to keep that in perspective, right? So they were eating meat and dairy products to begin with. They didn't feel well. So they wanted to look for something different because what they were eating wasn't working. So, obviously there's a lot of stuff in the standard American diet that's very toxic, but this idea sometimes that meat or dairy products is the end all be all, I don't know. I don't really understand it. I don't understand that perspective. That's pretty much the best way I could say it because, in America, most of us are raised eating that stuff and we're just as sick as can be. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. She started off sick, was looking for something different. She started doing juicing and, the raw foods and just eating cleaner overall. And she says by her own admission, she felt much better. So I think that's also important to state, like, she felt better. She was eating crappy. She felt better. Not only did she feel better, but she wanted to, get away from cigarettes and drinking, just wanted to live a healthier lifestyle. And I have found that to be the case for me as well. Uh, I, like anybody else, have my vices. And I remember, especially on one of my long-term fasts, thinking, wow, I never want to drink again. I want to go to the gym. And I'm not a gym person. Like, I'm not really a fan of working out and stuff like that. So for me to have that thought was significant, and it just came out of nowhere. And so I think we all tend to kind of, as we start getting healthier, we start thinking clearer, and we want better for our body. And so once again, her path was similar to mine in that sense, and everything makes sense so far in her story. Now, where things kind of start to take a turn left is she lost her period. Now, there's a lot of different opinions about women's periods. Depending on who you talk to, you can hear extremes left or extremes right, meaning, yes, a period is completely natural, you should have a flow. No, a period is not natural, you shouldn't have a flow at all, right? And everything in between. As far as my standpoint on it right now, I think that there's somewhere in between that's probably right. I think that women probably shouldn't bleed the way they do. I don't think that women should have the extreme cramps and uncomfortableness and bloatingness and the uh, mood swings and all of that stuff. I don't think any of that's normal. Okay, but the actual bleeding, I think that that's a natural process that happens due to over toxicity of the body. And since we live in toxic environments, it would be a natural reaction for your body to bleed a little bit. But I just don't think the amount of bleeding that we see is normal or right. It's not normal. It's common, but it's not normal. So that's kind of where I sit with it. And I've had several experiences with female friends and members of the group who have shared intimate details with me as far as that goes. And so I understand that there's a lot of different things people are experiencing, and there's a lot of different things people are being taught as it relates to their periods. The thing that I find interesting as she kind of started talking about, her losing her period, is that she felt completely fine at this point. So here's the thing. She felt crappy. She was eating the standard American diet. She was eating meat and dairy. She was smoking, whatever. She changed to a raw diet. She felt better, but she lost her period. Out of fear of losing her period, she then went to have tests done. Okay? So now you're taking somebody who's living a more natural lifestyle, and you're taking them to a doctor who is used to dealing with, who has only studied, who has only worked with people who live an unnatural lifestyle. All of the tests, all of their ways of gauging what's normal or healthy are based on people who actually aren't living natural lifestyles, who aren't healthy, essentially. And so they tell her that her hormones are out of whack. Well, I'm not surprised, because if you're used to people's hormone levels being within a certain range based on the average person, because that's what these numbers are based on. So based on the average American, and the average American is eating loads of crap and crud and toxins and meat and dairy products and, smoking and drinking and doing all that, then I would imagine that the hormones might look grossly different. Okay. So that's something that we always need to keep in mind. And I've mentioned this before as it relates to like blood pressure, right? You could actually be considered eligible for blood pressure medication here in America. Go to a different country, they run their tests and they say your blood pressure is fine. Well, you say, well, how is that? How are you at risk at high blood pressure here in America, but in a different country they say you're fine and nothing's changed except the location? It's because across the world they use different gauges, they use different ranges to say what's healthy and what's not, because oftentimes it's based on the average of that the population of people in that area. Sometimes they use different methods. So there isn't like one standard range that's considered healthy. It really is based on where you are. It's the same with diabetes. You could be considered a diabetic here in America, go to Canada, and they're like, no, you're fine. So with keeping that in mind, there's not much, it's not congruent throughout the medical world. You go to different places, you get different results. So that's important to understand, because who's really out there taking people who live more natural, holistic lifestyles and doing these tests, performing these tests on them? Nobody. Like, well, I won't say nobody, but I don't know. I haven't found any, doctors or PhDs who are really studying healthy, natural people. So with that being said, her numbers were off, her hormones were. So now they're like, well, shoot, she's thinking I feel good, but the doctor, someone's telling me that I'm sick, right? So now they're suggesting all these things, and she's worried and da 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 da. And I believe that it is at this point that things start to spiral out of control. It's because she did something good, she felt better. Now someone told her, yeah, you might feel good, but you're actually sick. You're going to make yourself sicker, and you'll see it over time. And so now she's looking for supplements. She's looking for advice. She's looking for different ways of eating, and she's straying. She's straying from what she did to make herself feel good. It's one of the reasons why I tell people, don't let anybody tell you, about your body, right? So if you are doing something and it's making you feel good, then, for the most part, you can kind of trust that. Now, obviously, there's, that's not 100% true, right? We could do stuff that's bad for us that makes us feel good. But if you're doing something like, fasting, or, eating more fruits, or, switching to raw, and it's making you feel healthier, especially over the long term, because you can experience a lot of detox symptoms up front early on, and that's not what I'm talking about. But if you kind of adopt a lifestyle and you really give it a chance, and you notice your energy levels higher, you're thinking clear, obviously that thing has been a benefit to you, right? So why are you going to allow someone to then tell you, oh, you're sick, something's wrong with you? The other thing that I noticed with this whole story is, I think she mentioned doing fasting once. She may have done fasting more than that, but she did do one prolonged fast that she mentioned, at least, and that was it. Okay, here's the thing, and when it comes to constipation, yeast infections or candida overgrowth or gut issues, intestinal bleeding, stuff like that. In my mind, based on what I've learned, the thing that makes the most sense is to literally stop putting food in your body. And especially when you're talking about, imbalances or, intestinal bleeding or anything like that, even juices and stuff, I would say stop putting it in your body. Because even though that stuff in a healthy body, in a normal functioning body may be okay, you may not be a healthy or normal functioning body. So the wisest thing you could do is literally stop putting stuff in your body to give your body an opportunity to start healing. And you need to do it at a prolonged rate, because, you don't know how long it's going to take your body to heal from whatever it is that's going on. When you do start to eat, you need to be very careful about what you eat, because you don't know what's irritating you. And maybe you can eat it. Maybe, there's certain fruits and stuff that irritate people with gut issues. So you want to stay away from those fruits if you have gut issues, or if you notice that when you eat it, it gives you a flare-up. Yeah, it may be good, but it's not good for you at this point in time. So there's a little understanding that goes along with this. And I don't believe, based on what she said in the little 30-minute video, I don't believe that she ever gave herself an opportunity to really heal. I think that she started feeling better and she was eating, and she just kind of went from there. Here's the thing. If my standard diet is a McDonald's diet, and I eat McDonald's every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then I switch from McDonald's because I don't feel good, and I would say 9 times out of 10, if you eat a McDonald's diet, you're going to start feeling very sick very soon. So if I switch from the McDonald's diet to a standard American diet, I'll start feeling better, right? That doesn't mean that the standard American diet is good, or that doesn't mean that I've done everything I need to do. It just means that the McDonald's diet is so bad for me that even when I, eat the standard American diet, I do feel better, right? And so while her diet, she may have improved her diet, did she necessarily hit on the core issues that were causing her problems in the first place? Was the diet the end all be all? And I don't think the diet is ever the end all be all. I think that, you can't take, if you imagine your body like a house, you can't trash your house for 10 years straight. Like I'm saying, trash it. Just, you know, garbage cans overflowing, punching holes in the wall, doing WWE on the furniture, just destroying all the furniture. And then all of a sudden one day decide, you know what, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to stop trashing my house and I'm going to buy new furniture. And you take the new furniture and you put it on top of the old furniture and you just move the old garbage cans aside and you start new garbage cans where you're going to start taking care of those garbage cans and, all these things. You have to clean up your old mess first, right? You got to clean up the old mess. You got to patch up the holes. You got to take out the old trash, right? You've got to clean up all that garbage and broken glass, get it out of there. And then you build on, put the new furniture in, right. So the point is you need to detox first. You can't just start eating better without detoxing, because you're still going to see problems later on down the road because you never got rid of that old stuff. You might feel better because you've stopped doing things in the short term that are hurting you on a daily basis. But if you don't take that time to do that deep cleansing and that really cleaning all that crap out, then yeah, later on down the road, I think you will see problems a lot of times, right? Depending on, a lot of different factors. So with that being said, I think her main issue is that she never really went in and did any deep cleaning for a prolonged period of time. She may have done a juice cleanse here, a prolonged fast there, but never really made a concerted effort to really cleanse all that stuff out. The symptoms went away. She felt good. She started doing her raw diet. And then, boom, later on down the road, she starts having issues. On top of the fact that obviously, she's going to these doctors and they're telling her to take this supplement and that supplement, play with your diet in this way, play with your diet in that way, so that's kind of my take on it based on the information that she's provided, based on what the knowledge that I've obtained and, all of the factors that I see that play into this. I think that she just simply needs to do a prolonged water fast. Or even better yet, some prolonged dry fasting, or even doing some cycling, dry fasting and water fasting, and really giving her body a chance to heal and rest. Now, the other side of it is they're telling her she needed to gain weight. Well, I've heard that before, right? So as you guys can clearly see, especially if you saw me when I very first started my videos, I've lost a ton of weight, right? I've lost 90 pounds throughout my entire journey. And it was never about weight loss, right? So that's not why I'm mentioning this. But the point is I'm very close to, if not underweight. And, I went and I looked, I was trying to figure out what is my increased chance of mortality based on the fact that I was underweight. And I couldn't find any information based on, being underweight, how I was at more risk for being sick or dying. Now, there's an increased chance of mortality for being obese, but I couldn't find one for being underweight. And while aesthetically, yeah, I could look better being bigger, and I agree with that, I don't see where I'm somehow more prone to being sick because of it. So she was, I guess, underweight. They're telling her she needs to eat more, put on weight, etc. Maybe that deterred her from wanting to do more fasting. because, she's thinking, oh, I got to put weight on. I don't know. There's a lot of factors and this is part of the reason why I don't do these types of videos, is because there's a lot of unknown factors. I would have to actually sit down with the individual and ask these questions so that I could, properly have a well-informed opinion. So with all of that being said, she, things have been getting worse and worse for her. She's been getting, I think there was a sense of desperation because what she's been practicing and preaching isn't working. And so she was willing to try something different. Now, all of a sudden, here comes this new disease that causes her to not be able to process fiber properly. Here's the thing. Before this quote unquote disease popped up, she was able to process fiber just fine. Now, I don't know what she did between changing to the raw diet and this disease popping up. I know a lot of people would like to say that, oh, it's just what's going to happen because you've decided to neglect your nutrition, you're malnourished, and so this type of stuff's going to happen. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I think that once again, it goes back to the fact that we never heard her say that she did any deep detoxing for prolonged periods of time. It takes a long time to detox. That's not something you could do in 20 days. It's not something you could do in 60 days, right? It takes a long time. You've been, holding on all this gunk and all this plaque and all this crap's been building up for decades, depending on how old you are. So now she's developed this problem with the fiber. And now it behooves her to eat, different type of food because a lot of what she eats, what she practices and what she eats is fiber based. Okay, boom. I understand that perfectly fine. And I'm with her. I'm not saying that you need to eat eggs and fish, but I think that you need to stop eating. Like if your diet is fiber and fiber is bad for you, then stop eating. Do some fasting. Do some long-term fasting. I guess even with juice fasting, depending on how she kind of feels when she does the juice fasting, that might work too, because a lot of the fiber is extracted when you juice it. But that might work. Now with the bloatingness and intestinal issues, I'm with her. I understand that. I mean, being constipated, that's not fun. It's not fun at all. And, you get to a point where you're willing to do anything. So I don't blame her. I think that the fact that, she's being I guess we can't say up front because I guess people found out a different way, but the fact that she's at least being honest about how she feels and, she's not saying she's perfect and all this type of stuff. She's just learning and she just wants to be healthy. I don't think anybody should be bashing anyone for experimenting and trying things. I stopped eating meat about a year and a half ago, and I feel great. I felt great when I did a month of no meat. I just did like a vegetarian month. I felt great, and that prompted me to kind of reduce how much meat I was eating as well as dairy. And then roughly, a year after that first initial month, I stopped eating it altogether, and it's been working out well for me. With that being said, I'm constantly going through a state of learning and, healing, because I'm not, people think, oh, Chris, you fast all the time. You look good, your hair, your skin, da, 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 da. I've got issues too, just like anybody else. Like my system's not perfect. By the same token, I don't eat perfectly all the time. I've also noticed that as I get healthier, my body responds differently to foods that I was able to eat before without issue. So it's kind of like once you've started down this health journey, when you kind of, if you backtrack, you pay big for it. That could have been another factor in her journey, is that she'd been eating raw for so long. Maybe she decided to go out and have a pizza one time. Maybe she decided to start eating, drinking again. Who knows? Who knows what she decided to do? But what I'm saying is that could play a major role in these new diseases popping up, because your body builds up a natural defense mechanism as you toxify it. And so, from being a little baby and slowly incorporating more and more toxins, your body has an opportunity to adjust and really just build up a defense so that, the body's job is to keep you alive and as healthy as possible for as long as possible. When you go raw, or when you start doing these deep detoxes and cleansing routines, uh, and then you go back to drinking soda and eating pizza all the time and eating dairy, ice cream, blah, 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 your body doesn't have opportunity to actually build up a defense against that. And it really just shocks your system. And so you can damage your system much easier than you would have before, because your system's just simply more pure. It's more clean. It doesn't have that layer of mucus there, that mucoid lining, that plaque lining in the body, which does actually kind of serve as a protection mechanism when you live that life. So that's something else that you have to keep in mind. So I hope that this video and my analysis of it kind of answered your question. At the end of the day, I still wholeheartedly believe in fasting for sure, as well as moving towards eating what I consider a more natural diet, which would be mainly fruit-based. And when I talk about fruit-based foods, I'm not talking about, just sweet fruits. I'm talking about all fruits, right? So, a lot of fruits are miscategorized. The fruits are just the ovaries of a plant. So that includes your peppers and your tomatoes and zucchini, squash, stuff like that. So that's my belief. And the main reason why and how I kind of justify that is the water content. We are, like 80% water. So it makes sense that a creature that's 80% water should eat a food item that's 80% water or majority water. That makes sense to me. Furthermore, the fruits have structured water, which is the type of water our body truly utilizes to hydrate the cells, right? So the cells in the cells, they need water, and the water you get from the fruits and vegetables mimic the water the cells need to cleanse and to nourish the cells. So that just makes sense to me. I don't see how a cracker, something dry, something that actually is very dehydrating, I don't see how that makes sense. I don't see how eating a ton of cooked food, even though I don't preach, oh, eat raw, because I still eat cooked food. But with that being said, I don't see how eating a ton of cooked food or even drying out your food is like the end all be all. And we got to understand when we're talking about eating, these meats and dairy products and stuff, that stuff's highly processed. It's cooked, has low water content, right? So that means when we eat it, it's extracting water from our bodies, which then means we have to drink more water. Whereas if you eat if you eat your water, you eat the high water content fruits and vegetables, then you don't really have to worry about that. So, logically speaking, even though I'm not all the way there, I'm not a raw foodist, I'm not a 100% fruit-based diet or anything like that. It's a journey, and I always tell people it's a journey, and it's something I'm moving towards. And there's also periods of time where I find balance in my diet, where I'm able to maintain my health very well. I feel good, energy levels good, and I can have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But I don't, my goal is to not lean so far on the wrong side that I kind of start taking a step back and becoming sick again, right? So that's my take on it. And, I think that at the end of the day, she kind of ended the video saying, hey, I'm not saying don't do raw. I'm just saying for me, where I am right now, I'm experimenting, and I don't see anything wrong with that. I think we need to be more forgiving, especially, in the vegan community. I think there needs to be more forgiveness, understanding of, people. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So just because she has she's been eating a certain way for so long, she doesn't feel good. And so she's looking for answers, and there's people out there willing to give them to her. And those answers may help in the short term. Right. It just is what it is. So that's all I got to say about that. If you guys enjoyed this video, join Patreon. If you join Patreon and you ask me to do a video even something like this where it wouldn't be something I would typically do, I may oblige because you guys have gone out of your way to show that you want to support me in a unique way. And I want to make sure that I'm, doing what I can do to support you. So with that being said, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. And as always, the application of knowledge is power, and I will see you guys next time.